If you ever scroll through money TikTok or financial YouTube, you probably heard some version of renting is throwing money away, or buying a house is always better because it's an investment. And on the flip side, you probably seen people saying owning is a trap, just rent and stay flexible. So which one is actually right? Well, today I want to cut through all the noise and walk you through a minimalist framework for deciding whether to rent or buy. One that isn't based on ego or pressure, but on values, numbers, and the kind of life you actually want to live. This isn't going to be a team rent versus a team buy video. Instead, I want you to walk away with a way of thinking about this decision so you can plug in your own situation and get clarity. If you're into financial minimalism, intentional living, or just not wanting to be manipulated by housing myth, this one's for you. Let's get into it. So let's start with the biggest myth, that renting is just throwing money away, while buying is automatically the smart grown-up move. That's not the full story. When you pay rent, and yes, you're paying for a place to live that you don't own, but when you buy, you're not only building equity, you're also paying interest, property taxes, insurances, repairs, and sometimes home ownership fees. You're still paying for housing either way. The real question isn't, am I throwing money away? It's, what am I getting back for the money I spent? That's where the minimalist angle comes in. We want to look at both options in terms of value, not vibes. A minimalist framework basically asks, does this add value or does this add clutter? With rent versus buy, that value can be beneficial, like long-term net worth, emotional, like feeling rooted or safe, and lifestyle-based, like flexing versus stability. So instead of asking, is renting dumb or is buying always smart, we're asking, which one gives you the best mix of value with the least amount of unnecessary complexity? Now let's talk about renting through a minimalist lens first. Renting shines in terms of flexibility and simplicity. If you're not sure where you want to live in the long term, renting can be a huge win. You can move cities and neighborhoods or even countries with way less friction. You're not stuck trying to sell a house every time you want to make a big life move. That's a massive advantage if you're in a career that might shift, if you're young and experimenting, or if you simply know you don't want to be tied down yet. Renting also keeps your mental load lighter. When the water heater explodes, or the roof leaks, or the appliances die, it's usually not your bank account that takes the hit. It's the landlord. You might be mildly inconvenienced, but you're not dropping $5,000 on an emergency repair. That's a kind of minimalism as well. Less responsibilities, fewer surprise costs. Renting can also make financial sense in a lot of markets. In some places, home prices are so high relative to rent that buying is actually the more expensive choice for many years. If your rent is significantly cheaper than what a mortgage plus tax and upkeep would cost, you can redirect the difference into an investment account. Over time, a well-invested portfolio can compete with or even outperform a home equity growth, especially in market where the price growth is slow or flat. Some financial planners like to point out that if you rent and invest the saving, you're not just throwing money away, you're just choosing a different asset to build wealth with. One that might be more diverse and liquid than a single house. And the catch is that you actually have to invest the difference, not just upgrade your lifestyle. But renting also has its downside as well. You don't have control over the property. The landlord can raise the rent, sell the place, or decide not to renew your lease. That can be stressful, especially if you crave stability or have kids, pets, or a community you deeply care about. You also don't build equity directly through your rent payment. Once you move out, there's no asset with your name on it. And if rent are rising fast in your area, it can feel like you're running on a treadmill that's keep on speeding up. So from a minimalist perspective, renting is about low responsibilities, high flexibilities, but sometimes at the cost of long-term control. Now let's look at buying through the same minimalist lens. Buying a home is often sold as you're paying your own mortgage instead of someone else's. And yes, there's some truth to that. Over time, part of your monthly payment does go towards building equity, your ownership share of the property. If home values rise, that equity can become a meaningful part of your net worth. For many householders, their primary home is one of their largest assets. There's also a deep emotional and psychological benefit to owning for some people. Painting the wall, renovating the kitchen, planting a garden, customizing the space to your lifestyle. All that can create a feeling of satisfaction and ownership that renting doesn't fully give you. If you're someone who loves nesting or you want to put down long-term root, owning can feel very aligned with your values. But here's where minimalist in reality checks in. A house is not just an asset, it's also a liability and a responsibility. You're on the hook for every pipe, every roof leaks, every weird crack in the wall. You have property taxes, which can be thousands of dollars a year and often rise over time. You have insurance, maybe homeowner association fees, and ongoing maintenance. A common rule of thumb is to budget at least 1% of the home value per year for maintenance. So for example, on a $400,000 home, that's $4,000 a year just to keep it in decent shape. Now, that doesn't feel very free now, right? And on top of that, you have interest if you're taking out a mortgage, especially in high interest rate environment. A large chunk of your early payment goes almost entirely to interest, not paying down the principal. So yes, you're paying your own mortgage, but you're also paying the bank a lot of the privilege. Not to say none of this means buying is bad, it just means that the romantic story of home ownership sometimes hide the ongoing financial and mental load that comes with it. A minimalist framework would ask, are you buying a home that supports your life, or are you buying a lifestyle that will not own you? So how do we decide practically between the two? Well, let's start by building a simple minimalist framework with 3 pillars: time, total cost, and personal values. First, we'll start with time. One widely used guideline is that buying tends to make more sense if you plan to stay in the same place for at least 5 to 7 years. That's because buying comes with a big upfront cost, closing costs, fees, sometimes renovation, and it takes time for the equity you build and any appreciation to outweigh those costs. But if you're likely to move within a couple of years, renting is usually a more minimalist choice. Fewer transaction costs, less stress, and more flexibility. If you can honestly see yourself staying put for many years and that idea feels good, buying starts to become more viable. Second, total cost. Not just the monthly payment. A minimalist doesn't just ask, can I afford the mortgage, but what is the real all-in cost of owning versus renting? So when you compare, don't just look at your current rent versus an estimated mortgage. Add in property taxes, homeowner insurances, average maintenance, maybe even homeowner association dues. Then compare that total to your rent plus renter's insurance and the cost of moving occasionally. Sometimes owning is still cheaper or close enough, and the non-financial benefit makes it worth it. Other times, the homeowner column is clearly way more expensive, and you realize renting and investing the difference might be smarter. The key is to zoom out and see the whole picture, not just the buying is an investment tagline. Third, personal values and lifestyle. This is the part most calculators can't capture. Are you someone who gets anxious about debt, or are you comfortable with long-term mortgage as part of your financial plan? Do you value geographic freedom, the ability to move countries, switch cities, chase opportunities, or do you crave long-term stability and a home base? Do you enjoy a do-it-yourself project and taking care of a property? Or does that sound like a headache you'd rather avoid? A minimalist choice isn't just what looks best on spreadsheet. It's what removes friction from your life and lets you live more intentionally. So before we end this, let's walk through 2 scenarios to see how this framework plays out. First, meet Alex. Alex is in his late 20s, living in a big city, career still evolving, maybe thinking about moving countries one day. Rent is high, but buying an apartment would mean a massive mortgage plus condos fees. When Alex runs the numbers, the all-in cost of owning is way higher than renting, and he's not even sure he wants to stay in the city for more than 3 years. From a minimalist framework, short-time horizon, high ownership costs, and high value on flexibility. For Alex, renting is the minimalist move. Instead of forcing home ownership because that's what adults do, Alex chooses to rent, keep life flexible, and invest the extra cash into index fund. His wealth is still building, but his life stayed light. Now meet Jordan. Jordan is in his mid-30s, has a stable job, and lives in a mid-sized city where rent is rising every year. He's tired of moving every time the landlord wants to sell or raise prices. He wants to start a family and dream of a small garden, a dog, and painting the wall any color he wants. When he looked at the numbers, the all-in cost of owning a modest starter home is slightly higher than renting, but not by a huge margin. He plans to stay at least 10 years. From a minimalist framework, long-time horizon, manageable ownership costs, and a strong value on stability and customizing his space. For Jordan, Buying is the minimalist move, not because it's more adult, but because it actually supports the life he wants with a burden he feels comfortable carrying. So at the end of the day, rent versus buy doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all answer, especially if you're approaching money in life through a minimalist lens. Renting isn't automatically a waste, and buying isn't automatically a win. The minimalist framework asks, how long are you staying? What's the total cost? And what kind of life do you want to live? Are you keeping things light and flexible, or are you ready to intentionally take on more responsibilities in exchange for more control and stability? So if you remember nothing else, remember this. Owning a home is not the only path to being smart with money, and renting doesn't make you behind or failing. What matters is that your housing choices lines up with your values, your numbers, and your seasons of life. That's the minimalist way to decide. Fewer assumptions and more intentions. So next time someone tells you you have to buy or you'll be crazy to own, you'll know the real answer is, it depends. So thank you guys for watching today's video. If you gain any value from this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and push the notification bell for more on sustainable fashion, personal finance, and minimalism. I'll see you guys on my next video.